Texas, 1944. The sun was barely a rumor when the transport trucks rattled to a stop, kicking up red dust outside Amarillo. The roar of the engines died, leaving a profound silence broken only by the chirping of cicadas and the whisper of wind through the mesquite trees. Inside, crammed together, were German prisoners of war, but not soldiers. They were women. Their khaki uniforms faded, their eyes weary from an impossible journey across an ocean. Among them was Lieselotte Minhart, a 24-year-old former Luftwaffe radio operator captured near Cherbourg. She had steeled herself for the America of Nazi propaganda, a land of iron cages, beatings, and forced labor under a brutal sun. She expected to be humiliated, perhaps worse. But when the truck doors opened, there was no barked order, no rifle butt. Instead, a calm, slow voice drifted over the strange rhythm of the morning. "Ma'am, watch your step." A man in a wide-brimmed tan hat stood waiting, sleeves rolled to his elbows, dust layered on his boots. He was not a uniformed guard. He was a cowboy, straight out of the Western films she'd seen before the war. The Texas sky behind him stretched, an unbelievable expanse of blue. Lieselotte inhaled, her confusion deepening. The air smelled of hay and horses, not cordite. A man offered her a dented tin cup of water. It was cool, cleaner than anything she had tasted since France. She drank it in one breath. "Plenty more where that came from," the cowboy said, nodding. Back home, they were taught Americans were savages. Yet here, in the gentle heat, stood a reality that defied all the stories. A dog barked lazily, windmills turned in the distance. The cowboy gestured toward the stables. "You folks will be helping out here, feeding, cleaning, and riding if you've got the nerve." Riding? She nearly laughed. She had prepared for chains, not saddles. As the camp gates closed behind them, Lieselotte whispered to herself, part shock, part awe. This is America." Part 2. The Power of Pragmatic Mercy. Lieselotte had been conditioned to fear a monster, but instead she found a nation so supremely confident in its own success that it saw no need to debase its enemies. The Reich's propaganda machine had done its work well, plastering walls with warnings of American torture and starvation. For women like Lieselotte, the fear was sharper still. Rumors of brutal labor camps circulated through the auxiliary corps. This ingrained terror traveled with her across the continent and the ocean. But when the doors opened in Texas, the nightmare failed to materialize. Guards offered food and, unbelievably, used words like please and thank you. It was unnervingly civilized. The truth was, by 1944, the U.S. was the world's largest warden, holding over 400,000 Axis prisoners. They adhered to the Geneva Conventions with rigorous precision. Prisoners were given small wages, permitted to study English, and in vast Texas, put to work on ranches and farms. The logic was simple. Millions of American men were fighting abroad, and the domestic economy, the food supply, the ranches, the cotton fields, still needed hands. This practicality looked to the German women like sheer compassion. The first night, Lieselotte stared at a plate of beef stew, bread, and apple pie, convinced it must be a trick, perhaps poisoned. But hunger soon defeated propaganda. They ate and realized the profound truth. Their supposedly barbaric enemy fed them better than their own high and mighty army ever had. Lieselotte later wrote home, her words heavily censored. "They told us we would be slaves, but here even the guards say good morning. The food tastes of mercy." For these women, raised under a dictatorship, the greatest shock wasn't the material comfort. It was the unnecessary dignity they were afforded. Part 3. The Lessons of the Callahan Ranch. America had something the Third Reich never grasped: moral confidence. The U.S. prison system was designed not to break morale, but to control it through decency. A busy, well-fed prisoner was less trouble and, eventually, a quiet ambassador of American superiority. The solution for the captured women, mostly clerks and auxiliary staff, was the wide, open spaces of Texas, perfect for labor programs. Many arrived near sprawling bases like Camp Swift, where the rule was simple: obey, work, and you will be treated fairly. The work assignments varied, but for Liselada and her group, it was ranch life, cooking, mending, and tending to livestock. To them, the sight of American soldiers trusting captured Germans with horses and tools was bewildering. To the American ranchers, it was a necessity. The propaganda that had painted Americans as corrupt, moral degenerates now crumbled against the reality of discipline, routine, and unexpected kindness. Their rations, 3,200 calories a day, including coffee and pie, felt like unbelievable abundance to women used to thin soup and ration cards. The American system was a giant machine of logistics. Trains delivered food, trucks collected laundry. Liselade noted this efficiency in her diary. Every crate, every meal, every uniform fits into a plan. Nothing is wasted. They build everything like a machine that never sleeps. But on the ranches, this machine merged with something completely different: the easy, effortless generosity of ordinary people.
Trust and the German cowgirl. The morning the work detail began at the Callahan Ranch, the group was greeted by Frank Callahan, a tall rancher whose accent was so thick the interpreter had to work hard. Frank's first order was not punishment, but a hearty breakfast. Then came the true test. "You'll be learning to ride," he said. "Can't herd cattle on foot." At first, it was pure chaos. Skirt tangles, shrieks, and bolting horses. The cowboys laughed, not cruelly, but warmly, helping them remount. "Don't fight her," one drawled. "Just feel the rhythm. She'll carry you if you trust her." By noon, fear was melting into dust and sweat. For the first time since their capture, the women were outside the wire, without guards breathing down their necks. When Liselot finally mastered a gentle trot, she felt a personal freedom she hadn't known since the war began. The barrier of fear was replaced by a bond of trust. Frank explained the boundaries simply. "You run, you'll die thirsty out there. You stay, you'll eat well and sleep easy. We're not your jailers, we're your neighbors till this war is done." They began to appreciate work not as duty, but as pride. The cowboys joked, sang, and competed. Evenings brought another shock. They were invited to sit by the fire where harmonicas and guitars played. One night, when a cowboy hummed Lily Marlene, Liselot found herself singing along, English and German voices blending, until, for a fleeting moment, there were no enemies, only people under the same stars. The change solidified during a sudden western storm. When the cattle panicked, the women, without being told, mounted up and rode alongside the ranchers, battling rain and mud to herd the terrified animals. Later, soaked and proud, Frank grinned, "Guess y'all ain't just city girls after all." That night, the ranch hands quietly hung a sign over the bunkhouse door: "The German Cowgirls." Liselot laughed until she cried. The war seemed distant. What mattered now was work and the strange dignity of being trusted. By the autumn, the fear had been replaced by genuine attachment. Mail was finally permitted. Liselot's hand trembled as she wrote home. "Dearest Mother, I am alive, and I must tell you something you will not believe. I am working on a ranch in Texas. They treat us not as enemies, but as people." Her family's replies were skeptical. They thought she was hallucinating or lying. But the truth was undeniable. She was drinking coffee, learning to make chili, and realizing that power wasn't just about armies, it was about organization and confidence. In April 1945, Frank Callahan delivered the final news. "They treat us not as enemies, but as people." Her family's replies were skeptical. They thought she was hallucinating or lying. But the truth was undeniable. She was drinking coffee, learning to make chili, and realizing that power wasn't just about armies, it was about organization and confidence. In April 1945, Frank Callahan delivered the final news. "Ladies, it's over. Germany has surrendered." There was no cheering, only stunned silence, and a quiet grief for a home that might be gone. When it was time to leave, Frank gave Liselott the Stetson hat, soft, cream-colored, as a farewell gift. "So you don't forget Texas," he said. Liselott put it on awkwardly, tears streaming down her face as the ranch hands cheered. "Yee-haw! The German cowgirl rides again!" As the truck rumbled away, Liselott realized the profound truth. She had come to Texas a prisoner and was leaving as someone entirely other. She whispered, "Maybe we lost the war, but perhaps we can still win peace." Liselott eventually immigrated to the U.S., settling in San Antonio, Texas. She opened a successful bakery, blending German strudel with Southern pecan crumble. Over her counter hung a framed photograph, the young woman wearing the oversized cowboy hat standing next to a smiling rancher. The caption read, "From enemies to friends." Historians now believe these German POW experiences played a vital role in forging post-war relations. Thousands returned home with stories of American fairness, becoming the first human bridges in a world desperate for trust. The simple decency of ordinary people, a cowboy with a gentle heart, had done more to mend the wounds of war than any diplomat. The greatest victory, Liselott learned, is often earned in the quiet grace of forgiveness.